When I retired, I thought I'd finally get to slow down and enjoy life. But I'll be honest, it wasn't easy at first. The days felt long, the house got quiet, and for a while, I didn't quite know what to do with myself. I had spent most of my life working, providing, being useful. And then suddenly, all that structure was gone. But over time, I started discovering things, small, meaningful things, that brought joy back into my days. Not just ways to pass time, but ways to feel alive, connected, and truly fulfilled. Today, I want to share 10 activities that helped turn my retirement into something I actually look forward to. Not just quiet or peaceful, but happy, fun, and full of purpose. If you're retired or planning to be soon, I hope these ideas inspire you the same way they changed things for me. Because this chapter of life still has so much to offer, if we let it. 1. Tapping into creativity. When I first retired, I didn't expect to miss having a purpose, but I did. Waking up without any real task ahead of me felt freeing for a while, until it started to feel aimless. Then one morning, I found an old box of photographs in the closet. Pictures from the Navy, my first car, my daughter's first birthday. I sat down with a notebook and started writing stories behind the photos, just for myself. And to my surprise, hours flew by. That day, I discovered something I hadn't realized I needed: creativity. It doesn't matter if you're not as a creative type. You don't have to be an artist. You just have to give yourself permission to express something. Writing, painting, woodworking, photography, knitting, playing an instrument, even humming along to an old record. These things connect you to a deeper part of yourself. They don't have to be perfect. They just have to be yours. For me, writing has become a quiet joy. I'm not trying to publish anything. I'm just trying to remember, reflect, and sometimes even laugh at old memories I'd forgotten I had. A friend of mine builds birdhouses and leaves them at the park with notes for kids to find. Another friend paints little greeting cards and mails them out randomly. Creativity can be big or small, but it always moves something inside. And the best part is, the more you create, the more alive you feel. It gives you something to look forward to, something that's yours, something that says, I still have more to give. And you do. Retirement isn't the end of your story. It's the chapter you finally get to write your way. Number 2, caring for pets or animals. A couple of years into retirement, I adopted a dog named Buddy. He was a rescue, older like me, and when I first brought him home, he just sat by the door, quiet and unsure. I was kind of the same way, to be honest. I had plenty of time, but not a lot of direction. I thought, maybe we can figure it out together. And that's exactly what happened. Buddy gave me more than companionship. He gave me structure. I had to get up to feed him. I had to take him on walks, even when I didn't feel like moving. And slowly, those walks became something I looked forward to. I started noticing the trees changing color, the neighbors' flowers blooming, the smell of morning. Buddy didn't say much. He's a dog. But he reminded me that life doesn't have to be loud to be meaningful. Pets have a way of grounding you. They live in the moment. They don't care what you used to do for a living or whether you're keeping up with the news. They care that you show up, that you're kind, that you're present. And in return, they offer love without conditions. Even if you can't own a pet, there are ways to connect with animals. Some folks volunteer at local shelters or visit farms. Some foster kittens or walk dogs for neighbors who can't. These little acts bring comfort, joy, and a sense of purpose. I thought I was giving Buddy a home. But the truth is, he gave me something even better, a reason to smile every day. And that, in retirement, is worth more than I can say. 3. Getting your hands in the dirt. I never used to be a gardener. My wife loved flowers, but I always said I had a black thumb. After she passed, the flower beds outside started to look a little sad. One spring, I decided to try planting something. Just one pot of tomatoes. I didn't expect much, but watching those little green shoots break through the dirt gave me a feeling I hadn't felt in a long time. Quiet hope. Gardening isn't just about plants. It's about patience. You dig, you wait, you water. You learn when to prune, when to protect, when to let nature take over. It teaches you that some things take time, and that's okay. You don't rush a rose into bloom. You don't force a seed to sprout. You just care for it and trust it will grow. These days, I grow herbs in the kitchen window, tomatoes in big buckets out back, and flowers along the fence line. It's not fancy. But every morning, I go out with my coffee, check the leaves, talk to the plants a little, and I feel connected to the earth, to the season, to myself. Gardening gave my days rhythm. It reminded me that life still has cycles, even after retirement. And it gave me something else too, pride. There's something deeply satisfying about making something grow with your own two hands. So if you've got a little patch of dirt, a balcony, even just a window box, try planting something. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to begin. Because in the end, gardening isn't about the harvest. It's about the tending. 4. Making time for family. When I was still working full-time, I used to tell myself, one day, I'll have time to really be with my family. You know how it is. Between long hours, commuting, and just trying to keep life together, it always felt like there wasn't enough time to do the things that mattered most. So when I retired, I thought, finally, this is it. This is my chance to be present, to make up for lost time. But the truth is, I didn't know where to start. At first, I expected the time with my kids and grandkids would just happen. But they had busy lives too. Jobs, school, schedules of their own. I realized that if I wanted to have meaningful time with them, I had to be intentional about it. I had to reach out, invite them in, and most importantly, show up. One of the most surprising moments for me came on a random Tuesday afternoon. My daughter dropped off my granddaughter for a few hours. No big event, just a babysitting favor. But something changed that day. We ended up baking cookies. Well, she mostly made a mess, and we laughed until we both cried. She asked me questions about what her mom was like as a kid, and I found myself telling stories I hadn't thought about in years. That afternoon became one of my favorite memories, and it opened the door to something deeper. From that point on, I made it a priority to create space for family in simple ways. I started Sunday breakfasts. Nothing fancy, just pancakes and good conversation. I offered to teach my grandson how to fish, like my father taught me. I began calling my kids, not just to check in, but to really talk. And when I listened, truly listened, I started hearing things I had missed for years. I used to think family was something you just had, but now I know. Family is something you build again and again through time, effort, and love. Retirement gave me that time, but love gave it meaning. No, I'm not as strong as I once was. I move slower. I forget things sometimes. But what I've learned is that my presence, my quiet, steady presence, is what my family needs most. Not money, not advice, just me, fully there. And the beautiful part? In being there for them, I found something I didn't even know I needed, a renewed sense of purpose. 5. Joining hobby clubs or local classes. One thing no one warned me about when I retired was how lonely it might feel. Not all the time, just in those quiet, in-between hours. You go from being around people every day at work to suddenly having long stretches of silence. And as much as I love a good quiet morning, there's a point where the stillness starts to feel heavy. That's when I knew I had to do something, not just to stay busy, but to feel connected again. So I did something that was very out of character for me. I signed up for a class at the local community center, a beginner's watercolor painting class of all things. I had never picked up a paintbrush in my life, but I went anyway. And you know what? I was terrible at it. My first painting looked like a muddy puddle, but no one laughed. In fact, a woman next to me said, "That looks like a stormy sky. I love it." We talked. We laughed. And I left that class feeling lighter than I had in weeks. That one class led to others. I joined a book club at the library, even though I hadn't read a full novel in a while. I tried a Tai Chi class at the park. I even got involved with a men's coffee group that meets every Wednesday at 9 a.m. sharp. No excuses. What I've learned is that hobby clubs and local classes aren't really about the activity itself. Sure, it's fun to learn something new, but what makes it meaningful is the connection. The simple act of showing up week after week starts to build something, a rhythm, a community. You start recognizing faces, remembering names. You become part of something again. And let me say this, you're never too old to belong. You're never too old to try something for the first time. Whether it's knitting, chess, woodworking, photography, or gardening, there's a place for you. Some weeks, I don't even feel like going out. But every single time I do, I come home feeling glad I went. I laugh more. I think more. I even sleep better. So if you're feeling like something's missing in retirement, try joining a group. Any group. Don't worry about being good at it. Just show up. You'll be amazed at what that simple act can do for your spirit. 6. Learning something new. You'd think that by the time you turn 70, you've learned everything you need to know. I used to believe that too. After all, I spent decades figuring out how to build a career, raise a family, fix a leaky sink, pay off a mortgage, real-life stuff. But after I retired, I realized something surprising. The most exciting part of life wasn't what I already knew. It was what I hadn't learned yet. It started with a random thought. I wonder if I could learn to play the harmonica. I'd never played an instrument in my life, but I found a free lesson online, ordered a cheap harmonica, and gave it a try. At first, I sounded awful. My dog would leave the room every time I practiced, but I stuck with it. Day by day, breath by breath, something started to happen. I wasn't just learning notes. I was waking up a part of myself that had been sleeping for a long time. Since then, I've tried other things too. I took a virtual class on history. I learned a few phrases in Italian just for fun. I even learned how to use basic video editing software so I could help my granddaughter with her school project. Every time I try something new, I feel more alive. It's like my brain thanks me for not giving up on it. I think a lot of us fear learning in older age because we don't want to feel foolish. We don't want to be the beginner again. But you know what? There's so much joy in being a beginner. You get to discover without pressure. You get to laugh at your mistakes and celebrate the little wins. And the best part? No one's grading you. You're learning for the pure fun of it. You don't need to master a new language or become a tech wizard. Just follow your curiosity. Always wanted to cook Thai food? Try it. Curious about how birds migrate? Read a book? Want to learn to dance, even if it's just in your kitchen? Turn on the music and go for it. When you keep learning, you remind yourself and the world that you're not done yet. You're still growing, still reaching, still becoming. And to me, that's one of the most powerful ways to keep your retirement full of joy and purpose. 7. Light travel and picnics. Before I retired, I had a dream of traveling the world. Paris, Rome, Tokyo, you name it. I wanted to see it. But when retirement finally came, I realized something I hadn't expected. Big, expensive, faraway trips just didn't appeal to me the same way anymore. Airports became stressful. Time zone changes threw off my sleep. Crowds overwhelmed me. I started to ask myself, is this really how I want to spend my time now? That's when I began to appreciate a different kind of travel. The kind that doesn't involve long flights or hotel bookings. The kind that's slower, quieter, and more personal. I call it backyard adventuring. It started with short drives, visiting a lake an hour away, exploring a nearby town I'd never stopped in before, or even just going to a new park with a packed lunch and a folding chair. One day, I brought a thermos of tea, a peanut butter sandwich, and my favorite mystery novel. I sat under a tree for 2 hours and felt more rested and inspired than I ever did on a guided city tour. There's something magical about keeping things simple, a picnic with a friend, a solo walk along a trail you've never taken, a sunset drive with no destination, just your favorite music playing. These small trips have given me so much joy, and they cost next to nothing. What matters isn't how far you go, it's how fully you experience it. When you're not rushing, not trying to fit everything in, you start to notice the little details, the sound of the wind in the trees, the warmth of the sun on your back, the laughter of kids nearby. These are the moments that stay with you. So if long-distance travel feels too complicated or exhausting, I say let it go. Choose light travel. Choose ease. Choose presence. You can find beauty, peace, and adventure just a few miles from your front door. I used to think retirement travel had to be grand, but now I believe it just has to be meaningful. And sometimes, a picnic blanket and a good view is all you really need to feel free. 8. Finding spiritual stillness. In my younger years, I didn't think much about stillness. Life was loud, fast, and full of responsibility. There was always something to do, somewhere to be, someone depending on me. And to be honest, part of me liked it that way. But when I retired, everything slowed down, sometimes more than I was ready for. The house got quieter. The phone rang less often. My calendar, once packed, now had blank spaces. And I'll admit, that silence was unsettling at first. But eventually I stopped trying to fill it. And instead, I started to listen. It began with just a few quiet minutes each morning. No music, no TV, no distractions. Just me, my coffee, and the sound of the world waking up. I didn't call it meditation. I didn't even know if I was doing it right. I just sat, breathed, and paid attention. And slowly, I started to feel more grounded. Then I started reading spiritual books, not just religious texts, but books about purpose, aging, and peace. I revisited prayers I hadn't said in years. I lit candles in the evening, not for ritual, but for reflection. I began to notice something I hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of inner calm. You don't need to be religious to have a spiritual life. For some people, it's church. For others, it's walking in nature, listening to music that stirs the soul, or simply sitting in quiet gratitude. Spiritual stillness is about making space, not just in your day, but in your heart, for what really matters. It's about slowing down enough to remember who you are, what you've lived through, and what you still have to give. In this season of life, I've come to realize that peace doesn't come from having everything figured out. It comes from accepting that not everything needs to be. Stillness has taught me to stop chasing and start being, to breathe more deeply, to live more gently. Retirement gives us the time to reconnect with the deepest parts of ourselves. Don't rush through that gift. Embrace the stillness. You might be surprised by what it tells you. Number 9. Cooking and sharing meals. Growing up, family dinners were the heart of our home. My mother didn't just cook, she cared through her cooking. A warm meal on a cold night, a favorite dish after a bad day, pancakes on Saturday mornings. As I got older, I moved away from that rhythm. Meals became quick, functional, rushed, but after I retired, I found myself slowly making my way back to the kitchen. Not out of obligation, but out of curiosity and a little bit of nostalgia. I started by pulling out my wife's old recipe box. Inside were handwritten notes stained with flour and love. Her meatloaf, her apple pie, her chicken soup. I decided to try one just to see if I could. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like I had brought her into the room with me. Then I started cooking more regularly. Sometimes for myself, sometimes for family, sometimes just to drop off food to a neighbor. It gave my days rhythm. It gave my hands something to do, and it gave me joy. But here's the best part. Cooking brought people back to my table. My kids, my grandkids, old friends I hadn't seen in years. I began hosting simple Sunday lunches. Nothing fancy, just food from the heart. We'd sit, talk, laugh, and linger. Phones down, stories shared, plates passed. For a few hours, it felt like the world slowed down and focused on what mattered most. Connection. Cooking isn't just about ingredients, it's about love, history, and presence. Whether you're making a full roast or just grilled cheese and tomato soup, it's an act of care. And sharing that meal? That's where the real magic happens. You don't need to be a professional chef. Some of the best meals I've ever had were the simplest. What matters is the warmth, the intention, the gathering. In retirement, meals have become more than food. They've become memories in the making, and every time I set the table, I'm reminded that even the smallest traditions can nourish the soul. 10. Sharing. What you've learned. When I was younger, I always thought wisdom came from age, but now, being 70, I know better. Wisdom comes from reflection. We all go through life collecting experiences, stories, and hard-earned lessons, and too often we carry them quietly, never realizing how much they could mean to someone else. After I retired, I found myself thinking a lot about legacy. Not money or property, those things come and go. What I mean is the kind of legacy you leave in people's hearts, the stories they remember, the values you pass down, the voice they still hear in their minds when they're unsure what to do. So I started small. I wrote a letter to each of my grandchildren. Nothing formal, just a few pages about what I've learned in life, things I wish I had known when I was their age. I shared stories about my own childhood, my mistakes, my victories, my regrets. I told them what really matters and what doesn't. And when I gave them those letters, I didn't expect much, but my daughter told me later that one of the kids keeps it in her desk drawer and reads it on hard days. That meant the world to me. You don't need to be a writer or a speaker to share your wisdom. You can record voice notes on your phone, create a scrapbook, teach your grandkids how to build something, or just talk, really talk, when the moment comes. These little gifts of insight can stay with someone for the rest of their life. And it's not just for them, it's for you too. Reflecting on what you've lived through helps you see how far you've come. It gives your life shape and context, and it reminds you that even now you still have something meaningful to offer. In this season of life, we don't need to chase recognition. We just need to be remembered with love and respect. And that starts by opening up and sharing the parts of ourselves that only we can tell. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs more truth, and yours is worth telling. A life that still has so much to give. Retirement isn't the end of the road. It's not a slowdown or a step back. It's a rare and beautiful opportunity to live differently, more deliberately, more meaningfully, more in tune with who you really are. These 10 activities I've shared aren't just ways to pass the time. They're ways to reconnect with your family, your community, your passions, your purpose, and most importantly, with yourself. It's easy to think that our best years are behind us, but I'm here to tell you, that's just not true. The best years are the ones where we're fully present, where we laugh, explore, create, give, and love deeply. Whether you're walking your dog, writing a story, learning a new skill, or making soup for a neighbor, you're living a life that matters. I hope you take at least one idea from this list and try it. Not because you have to, but because you can. Because this is your time, and you deserve to fill it with joy, purpose, and peace. Thanks for spending this time with me. And remember, retirement isn't about what you've left behind. It's about everything you still have to offer.